Welcome to another episode of the PGTK Podcast, an interview podcast. My name is Emmanuel, and first of all, Happy New Year to all the listeners here today. May 2024 be your best year yet. And on this episode of the podcast, we have on Black Swan Zoe DuBois. She is a professional wrestler based in Las Vegas, and this interview was taken during our extra live streams in 2023. We discussed her beginnings as a ballet dancer and how that transitioned into the wrestling career she has today, and how a chance encounter with Cal Bishop, formerly of WWE, cemented her place as a wrestler for life. We also discussed her matches in Mission Pro Wrestling, as well as facing Billie Starks in Republic of Lucha. All I require from you is to follow this podcast, and we have so many guests in line, so please do follow this podcast if you want to see these guests within the next few weeks. And without further ado, here is our conversation with Black Swan Zoe DuBois. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing good. Vegas weather, she's a little chilly right now, but other than that, I could just layer up and call it a day.
Yeah, no, and Austin's kind of cold here too. We hit like 40s in the morning. It's like, okay, this is going to be that weather. And it's going to be 80s by next week. It's like it never even happened.
Oh gosh, I already know it's going to be like, we've been getting mosquitoes, and Vegas is not cut out for that. But there's been just a new batch of bugs, and everybody's ankles have been getting bitten. I got that good blood. They love my blood, but it's been chaotic here. So.
Oh no.
Y'all might have some more bugs. We don't get bugs. We're too dry for that. But it's been raining a lot this year. So it's been interesting seeing how the desert has been.
So we're gonna talk about a bit of your career tonight. And what's interesting about your wrestling style, it didn't start there. You had a background in dance. And tell us a little bit about your dance background, and do you remember your first dance recital?
Ooh, my first one, I think I was a lion. So my mother, she was a dancer before me. And whenever I was born, I had these really high arches in my feet, and I used to dance all over the living room. So my mom, she's like, right, I know who to take you to. So she took me to a school called IDEA, International Dance Academy for Education, or International Dance Educational Academy, run by Carol Sampson. So that was 13 years of my life. And I think my first recital, I got it on DVD. I was a lion, and we were dancing to The Lion Sleep Tonight. So we had these horses, this fuzzy little tail. And we had to wake up in the morning and point your feet and I was super young, and my sister, she was 2 years younger than me. She joined me as well, so we were in the same class for a while. But yeah, I think that was my first ever. I was a chicken for one show.
Wow.
All types of animals.
Yeah, and like what drew you into dance in the first place? Was it just like what drew you to dance as you started to grow up, learning how to do it?
I think it was the joy of channeling emotion and creating emotion, not just with your face, but with your body, because you have this freedom, the ability to move and to mold yourself in all sorts of ways while connecting it to music. There's always such a difference of like you're dancing to the music and you're dancing with the music. Those are two different connections. And when you have that moment of, the music is not leading you, you are leading the music. And it is a beautiful partner group where it's so spirit lifting and relieving. And when you see people expressing the same emotion that you're trying to project or create, it is a phenomenal thing, because now you're making everyone collected into it. It is not just someone on the stage with lights and makeup. You get this story from beginning, middle, and end, even if you don't know what is going on, people in box costumes and tapping on OA or anything random, but there's still just something awe-inspiring about movement and noise along with it. That is something that I've always loved.
And do you have a piece that you're proud of doing? Is there any pieces that you were proud of dancing for?
So after my 13-year schooling with the company or the school idea, I went into a professional company as a student at first, and then I became a part of the second company that I had. Then I was an apprentice and an actual company member, and I finished as a rehearsal director. But the company was called Contemporary West Dance Theater here in Las Vegas, and it was run under and founded by the name of Bernard Gaddis. And he's from Philly. So he was born and raised in Philly.
Okay.
And he had his professional dance career at the age of 15. And he started with the company called Philadelphia, and then he went into the New York company, Alvin Ailey. And that is a major black dance
I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
So he was a part of that, and he moved to the West Coast and he started his own company. And I came along. But because he had those connections, we were allowed to use the piece called Night Creatures, done by Alvin Ailey himself. And it's a beautiful ensemble. You know that you have two man and woman principal dancers, and you have everything. And one year that I was with the company, I was able to be the lead woman. And along with it, we had live orchestra with us as well. We had the kids come in, and they were playing the live music, and we were dancing with it. And to get that moment of being the lead woman was absolutely such an honorable time, because not a lot of people get to have that role, and it's such big shoes to fill in. So taking that moment and being with, people that I love to dance with, and feeling the energy, feeling the life of the music, and having that time was definitely a memorable moment that is in my books forever.
And how often do you train at that time? Like, is it like a daily process? Is it nonstop?
So we did go down to 3 days a week for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but those days would be like 4.5, 5 hours long with dance and rehearsal. And then when it was show week, we would have to work the whole week from like 6 hours a day. It's just making sure that everything's clean, everything's set. And then show days, it would start early morning, run it the full show a couple of times, do the actual show, have a good night, soak your body, take some Advil, pray for another day, come back.
It's like, I'm alive.
Right. Definitely have that. Say Jesus made it one day. Okay, nothing's broken.
Especially now, like when as a dancer, like how do you work the audience, especially when you're performing on a stage? What is your quirks? How do you approach a certain number? Like what you mentioned before, like what can you do to make the audience tick?
You have to think about speaking not only with your face. Being dance, and even like being in the ring with wrestling, like you have to show that it is collective. You are fighting and living with every inch of your body. It's not just, smiles. And with dance, you figure out what type of interpretation of emotion you want to channel with the choreography, because obviously you're not going to, doing a frowny face with something that's yippity-doo-dah. But when you have to express, a longing, desire of something, or heartbreak, or just rejoice, or any type of channeling you want, you have to think about like, okay, either you have to come to a time where it was in your life, or you have to look at videos and see like, what does that look like to be joyous? What does it look like to have heartbreak, to have anger, passion, power? Because every emotion does different things to your body, with your face, with your hands, with how you walk. Either like if you're gloomy, you're going to slouch down. If you're not, you're going to stand up straight. If you're injured, you're gonna comfort that part of your body. And if there's victory, if you feel like you have a little bit more push, what does that look like?
Mhm.
what is that encouragement, that desire, the passion, the pride of wanting to keep going? How does that help you carry on and express it to everybody else?
Right. And how does music, like you mentioned flowing with the music, what's that thin line between hearing the music and flowing with your movements with the music?
Oh, it's easy. Have you ever had like a time where one of your favorite songs come on, and you just close your eyes and you just get lost? Do you
We just
have
did that in the pre-show. I was bopping J-pop. So yeah.
just get lost in it totally? But
It's like
it's
focus
that
mode at that point.
yeah. Or even like if you are somewhere comfortable and you're listening to music and it's, slowing your heart rate down, or you have like a ratatouille moment where you get to see the
Mm.
colors in your
Okay,
bag.
okay. I see that.
Kind
Okay, I
of, it's
got
kind
that.
of like that. It's not just seeing the notes on a piece of paper or listening in your ear. All the high notes, are you feeling an uppity happy moment with it, or is it impactful? Is the beat very hard and
Mhm.
heavy, so you have to go down with it? Either or there's two different sounds to the music. You might have like a very heavy hitting bass, but then you might have a violin playing soft and slowly, so you have those two contracts.
Mhm.
And it's not like you have to pick one or the other. You might dance with one and then you might dance with the other style, but it's still a conjoined movement to create something whole.
Mm. Were there any pieces of music that you listen to that you have that feeling when that happens? Whether it's just even like contemporary stuff or classical music, were there any songs or anything in particular that kind of catch your attention and you kind of feel the movement of the music?
So there's one artist, I'm gonna butcher his name.
Hey everyone, this is me from the future, and the artist that Zoe mentioned is Ludovico Iunati, who is an Italian composer and pianist who is trained at the Conservatorio Verdi in Milan. All right, let's get back to the podcast.
He's created a couple of pieces where my director, he would actually have us dance to. And I'm a sucker for a waltz time signature, the
Mm,
3/4. I like threes. And there's a couple of pieces that he's created that are in waltz step. And I get that, I get that ratatouille moment. I'm just like, yes, flow free. And
yeah.
when we performed, you would see me, in the background and just completely get lost with the moment. And then I'd have to realize that I have to keep on going and dance.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Good. And especially
Mhm.
like with music, like I'm more of the contemporary guy. Like, especially when there's songs that have I'm more of a pace person. So like, if I hear like there's a Turbo Killer by I forgot by Carpenter Brute. Like I would drive, and then when that song shows up, it's like tunnel vision. Whenever I drive, within reason. So
Run safe. Make sure you definitely run safe.
within reason, like I would just bop, and next thing you know, it's like this tunnel vision, and it's almost trance-like. But then, of course, when the red light shows, like, oh, slow down, when that happens. So,
Snap back into
um,
reality real quick.
exactly. Like, do you have any like contemporary songs that you listen to? I know we talked more on the classical side of things. Do you have any like songs from like today's hits that kind of make you bop that way? Here
Yeah.
we go.
I don't just listen to classical music. I have
Yeah.
choices. Yeah, I'm very open and to music. I like all genres of music. What I grew up on was mostly like classic rock. So
Mm,
I grew up with um, Queen and Metallica and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles. So that was my era. Now today's society, of course, I listen more on the pop, I
mm.
guess, scale. I love my Nicki, I love my Megan, I love my Cardi. But I am not picky with my music at all. If
Oh,
if
okay.
I could beat Lizzo. That's my girl. She got some good Beyonce. Beyonce had a Renaissance fair here in Vegas. Absolutely wild.
Oh my gosh. We have this ballet and dance background. How did wrestling come into your life? What was like whether it's a first match or if you saw a wrestler, like, what was that click to wrestling?
Always a funny story telling this. So I did not grow up. It's so like random. I did not grow up watching wrestling. My family, we're all lovers. We're not fighters.
Mm.
And I was working a convention after like a third party, and it was a celebration for like a shot show event, and it was drastic themed. So they had everyone dressed up as like cavemen or dinosaurs, and there was fire everywhere. And they had these different stations set up. And mind you, it was January. So this was January of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Maybe. Yes. Anyways, I'm trying to keep
We'll go with it.
All right. January of 2022, and it was outside of Vegas. It was super cold, and I was looking around at these different stations, and I saw a sign that said bear wrestling. And there was, a zip line thing. There was some padded boxing, but I saw the bear wrestling. I'm like, well, if I'm going to be spending my night cold, I'm going to have fun. So another girl and we decided to host this bear wrestling event, and there's these bunch of wrestlers, and one was dressed in a bear costume. And the entire night, they were wrestling the vets, and we were screaming and we were cheering. And the times during the break, we got to talk with a few of the wrestlers. And the guy in the bear wrestling suit, his name was Cal Jack. And he used to be on WWE as Cal Bishop, and he's had his career. So I was like, oh, that's super cool.
Okay.
And, after the girl and I, we said, after we clock out, we're getting in that ring. I don't care what happens. So the time for us to clock out, we got in the ring, we wrestled the guys for a little bit, we wrestled each other for a little bit. And Cal, he looked at us. He was like, hey, do you guys want to come to training one day? It's you can try to see. And myself, I said, okay, sure, why not? If I don't like it, then I know. If I do, hoorah. So I went to one of the training days, and we got to roll around a little bit. I learned my roles, and I got to flip some 300-pound dudes, and I felt strong.
Wow.
I felt great.
Okay.
I got to see a match right after, and for some odd reason, I wanted to go back, and I did. And I kept on going back. And when I told my folks about it, if they both told me no, I would have stopped, because I respect my parents. So if they don't want me to get hurt, then fair enough. My mama, the dancer, she said no. Fair enough. My dad, on the other hand, he didn't technically say no, but he didn't say yes. So I went with yes.
So it's a baby. So it's a baby.
Right. But I know I took it with, okay, I can still continue. And he even joked about giving me a nickname of like the bad babe ballerina, or babe for short. And I'm like, okay, maybe, but we'll put that in a pocket. So I kept on going back to training, and the more I learned, I'm like, okay, this is fun. This is super dope. Because of my dance background, I'm very leggy. So they're like, just kick people in the face. I'm like, okay. And I thought of just like, okay, I'm going to use dance along with me to carry it into my wrestling life. How do I interpret this? I'm like, okay, dance, ballet. What's the villain, or what's the good guy? And I thought, okay, Black Swan. She is the antagonist in Swan Lake, and her moves and the way that she dances, especially when you look at the original ballet, it is more passion, charismatic, and more challenging with it as well. So I took that, and I know there's another Black Swan in Europe, Mr. New York, but there's none in the States. So I said, okay, put it in my pocket. I'll be the next ballerina. And that's how it was. And the rest is just, here we are.
Where do you see the parallels? Because wrestling and dance and ballet have those parallels. Where did you notice, as you started training in wrestling school, where did you see that parallel?
There's actually quite a bit of similarities in wrestling and dance that a lot of people don't realize. For the basics of it, you have vocabulary. You put your vocabulary together to create a sentence, to create a combination. You are presenting yourself as some type of persona that you may not be outside of it, but maybe also as well. And you are trying to persuade the audience to feel a certain way. You also listen. You are listening, but you're also trying to carry them along with it. I'd say the only difference between dancing and wrestling is that with dance, we make it look pretty. Wrestling, we make it look ugly. You know, it is ugly. And a little more hazardous, I will definitely say, and charismatic. But those similarities of, you know, you are basically doing a dance with whoever is alongside you. With dance, you are projecting it out, but you're also projecting it around everyone. With wrestling, you are projecting it to the other person you're trying to take down and win against the other person, but you also want everybody to be along with you.
Right.
So,
And did you have any wrestlers that you studied tape with when you started training?
yeah, I got a couple when I first started doing this and tried to figure out who I wanted to look at. I took some inspiration from Charlotte, of course, Charlotte Flair, because of her athletic background. I looked at Sunny Lee, because she's a little spunky because of also her. I took a lot of like gymnastics wrestlers mindset. I focused a little bit more, at least with, I like to call them the founding fathers of wrestling. I'd looked more at Undertaker more than everyone, and because of his aspiration, and his character is very surreal and mythical. So I try to look at that. Sasha Banks, her spunkiness, you know, the Four Horsemen. I like looking at them quite a bit because they don't try to show or express themselves by being pretty. They're here to, you know, mess some people up and let their names be known. And I found that such inspiring and monumental about that. So I definitely looked at them a lot more.
I want to highlight, because I was at the Mission Pro Thriller, and this was like my first indie show, because I would always go to like the major promotion, but this is like my first time seeing indie promo. And you were in a match. We were in an open casket match with JP Harlow, and out of nowhere, Joey Hyder. Like, tell us like what's going on before, during, and after the match.
I was so mad that Joey was a part of it, because my last MPW show was my first debut as well, and I went against Harlow again, or I would say the first time, and they cheated. He brought the other Mission Bro army out, and Joey interfered, and I took a loss, even though it should have been my win. So I was already pissed off about that. So when JP made the announcement of doing this challenge, I'm like, all right, bet. I'm going to run it back, and I'm going to show you that I'm going to win. And he didn't take me serious at first, but I was very stern about it. I'm like, you know, all the other women, they don't want to waste their time. I'm just going to do the dirty work for you. So we had a little bickering back and forth. And by the time that the challenge was going to happen, I was more than angry. I was ready, because he came out, you know, all shenanigans that he did. So I dove on him, and I lit him up. And during that time, all I wanted was to show that I should not be underestimated, especially from him, because I am new and I've only done a year in of wrestling and whatnot. So I wanted to show like, hey, this is a moment, this is real. So I did that, and when I opened the casket, Joey was in there, and
that surprised me too. I was like, I thought Shane McMahon had a cameo. I was like, oh, it's Joey.
Nope, just Joey. Just Joey. He did the dance quite well, you know, as a dancer, from one dancer to whatever we call him. I give him a solid C+.
Okay, all right. That's
just above
nice now.
Just above average. That's all he gets. He's not no gold star. But I was pissed off, because I'm like, man, I can't just have a singles match with JP. You just always have to have his buddies in. But Joey came in. He was about to light me up, and then two more guys came in and started fighting Joey while I'm recovering, because he was about to kill me.
Oh, geez.
And that happened. So the guys went out, took Joey out, and I finally got to put Harlow in the casket. But then I didn't, because he wanted to stop me, and I was he choked me out, and I went unconscious. But he closed the lid in me, but I had my arm out, so he couldn't. He couldn't close it all the way, and by the time that he opened to reveal, I sprayed him. I locked him in, and I
Oh,
was like, this is it, 1, 2, 3, because I was so determined and motivated that he was not going to get this win at all.
yeah, I was watching it, and we talked about it earlier how the audience got drawn with the entire match. When Joey Hyder came out of nowhere, I was like, holy crap. I didn't know the context about what's going on. I was like, all right, this is not fair. And it's safe to say it's a no DQ. It's safe to say that. So like when I saw Joey, I was like, what the heck? I thought it was Shane McMahon. That was my first like, oh, he came. Oh, it's another guy. Dang it. But like, yeah, it's that engagement of how like, oh my gosh, it would turn into a regular match into like, what the heck is going on? It's like, it's that push and pull between the audience and you guys, because like now it's like, oh, okay, I see where they're going with this. And when the casket got closed, the crowd just popped, and it's like that's amazing how you guys like really just like get the audience going. And there's so many run-ins. I'm like, I couldn't even know what's going on. I was recording maybe a good minute, but it's like, there's 5 people. What's going on? It's like, but at the same time, like there is that moment of like, oh, okay, I see where they're going with this, and yeah, that was a great match, and that was my first indie show that I've ever went to, and y'all delivered.
Well, definitely, come back December 9th. That's when I'm returning to MPW.
I already got my tickets. We're set.
See?
As soon as I drove home, I'm like, yep, December 9th. I have it on my calendar. And recently, you had a match with Billie Starks. Now, Billie Starks, huge Ring of Honor star now, and you faced her in Republic of Lucha. What was that like?
I felt like the utmost privilege to be in the same ring as her. She is such a beautiful woman inside and out, and she is so kind-hearted. So in my mind, I'm just like, you can respectfully mess me up. I will lay here and you could just take the pin. I don't care. Anything for you. But she was a wonder to work with, and I loved our contrast of like her being fidgety and vibrant and loud, and me being, on the darker calm, and with my swan, like I'm a little bit more smoother and one is not. So it was a really good compare and contrast between the two. But other than that, I love that woman. That's all I can say.
What makes her special? Like what makes her such a special wrestler when you faced her in the ring that night?
She's been doing it for so long. She started at the age of 13 with wrestling. Now she's 18. So the fact that she's well seasoned with what to do and what not to do. She's able to work with, I would say, almost anyone, if I can only imagine, because her sensibility of making sure that your opponent is safe, but also making sure that everything is still going to be fun, lively, and we're just going to have a good time. Because at the end of the day, why are you wrestling if you don't love it?
What stood out from that match with Billie Starks? Like, what was the one thing that you're like, oh my goodness, you did that?
I'd say that the vibrancy from her, and not only the crowd as well. The crowd was very into it, and Billie pushed me to a couple limits that I didn't realize that I could go. And I knew, like, man, this is a next chapter in my life, or a new breaking point for me. And Thunder Rosa, she came in and she helped me out for a little bit, but I still got the loss. And then Thunder, she challenged Billie as soon as she gets better, because I know that's going to be absolutely phenomenal of a match to see. But the crowd getting behind it, me being so new, and me having like my first debut at Republic of Lucha, they're like, oh yeah, Swan, we know her. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna.
Especially with your career now, what are your goals moving forward? And you're the Best of the West champion, of course, with the upcoming match in Merced. Do you still have any goals in mind in your career?
I don't want to limit to myself, but I definitely want to see where this path can take me. I would love to get signed on TNA or actually go on Ring of Honor. I think that would be a phenomenal time if my tryouts for WWE ever are to come and they like what I do. I think that would be a wonderful moment where I could look at my mama and be like, hey, I made it.
I got some.
I did it. But because I'm so new on this journey, I am taking everything to the bottom of my heart because I am so grateful for any of the opportunities that I get
Mhm.
and the feedback and all the learning experiences that I get, and even interacting with a few of the talent that are so well seasoned and well knowledgeable and are welcome
Mhm.
to the up and coming and the greens that are just so angry to thrive. I think I just want to take that and keep reaching for the stars because the sky is not the limit.
Right. And we're gonna be close to wrapping up. And I was reading, I have to find this study, and adolescence is where everything gets picked up in life
Mhm.
between 10 and 19. And with your life right now, if you could see Black Swan Zoe DuBois at 12, what would you give her as advice or sagely wisdom?
Be proud of yourself. I feel like that's the biggest thing. Little the boy at a young age, I would definitely tell her that just because you have not hit your main goal does not mean you have not accomplished so much more than you already thought. Because you
Hmm.
have to celebrate the little things. You have to acknowledge, your little victories in your life and realize that it is such a great opportunity to where you first started to where you are now. And then I'll tell her to be the baddest girl she is and fly high and fly free.
It's like, yes, let's do it.
Right.
And yeah, and honestly, like, we met a little bit with after the show with Mission Pro, and yeah, thanks for, as you can see right there, thank you for those prints, and it's gonna be there for a while because and it was honestly a treat to see, especially how you wrestle. And I've never seen it. We talked about it before after the show, where I've never seen a a ballet influence in wrestling, um and it's kind of amazing seeing that, especially with what's going on with the casket match, and seeing hints of how you perform. And I see the dance background, and with you discussing it, I understand how dance and wrestling go hand in hand, because yes, you want the reaction, you don't want to see someone see someone go, okay, cool, next match please, but like you see the push and pull from the audience and seeing how they react. And honestly, from the bottom of my heart, you're one of a kind. So I've never seen a wrestler like that with ever. So you have my first one of a kind wrestler, because oftentimes wrestling will have imitations, we'll have copies, but like what you're doing, especially in your wrestling repertoire, I've never seen. So flowers.
Thank you. I've
Flowers.
made I've made a realization along with it because there's been times where I have for sure feeling like not only the black swan but the black sheep because I'm bringing
Mm,
something so abstract that people they don't know if they like it but they don't want to stop watching.
mhm.
So I like that moment because in my entrance I say I'm the bewitcher of hearts because it's not like
Ooh.
I'm pushing you away, but I'm still drawing you in slower and slower just because there's just something different about me. But the realization I made is also when you really look into the core of movement, and especially with martial arts, there's been different types of
Mm,
martial arts that can also be interchanged with dance. The movement, the grace, the fluidity. You could look at Tai Chi. It is very slow. It is a dance sometimes that you could create, and it is also rooted from it because not everyone is a master, especially back in the day. No one was like, oh, they're a full on warrior because all the farmers, but came from dance, everyday life technique. So I always like to tell myself that I'm still having that connection of bringing a dance aspect into wrestling. I don't want to
mhm.
look too dancey or to make it look like I am just pretty because dance, we have to make it look pretty. We make
Right.
it look lightweight. We make it look easy. So I'm trying to intertwine that easy power behind it. You get to see a little bit of the mixture of both. It's still just as graceful and poised, but there's a snap and aggression behind it. So you get to see internally how us dancers feel when I wrestle.
So it's external. It's like, oh. It's an outward. It's an outward like expression.
I am channeling what I have felt for the past 21 years of my life in this wrestling.
It's like you get to see it all. You get to see it all at that point.
Right. What goes through a dancer's brain?
So this concludes our little chat. Thank you so much, Zoe, for gracing us with your presence tonight on Extra Life. And where can we find you? And you can tell like what your upcoming events. I kind of said at the beginning, but you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. You can find me on Instagram at black.swan_DuBois. You can find me on Twitter at _ Zoe DuBois, and look up any Black Swan Zoe DuBois thing on YouTube and I will pop up. If not me, some other dancer will pop up for Black Swan. I do have Pride Style coming up on the 10th. I also have Best of the West further down the road. And in December, I have Mission Pro Wrestling returning back.
And that was our conversation with Black Swan Zoe DuBois. Since we last spoke in Extra Life last year, she did win her match against Rebecca J. Scott at Mission Pro Wrestling Silver Bells 3. And she has so many things going on right now, so you can follow her socials provided in the show notes. And next week is going to be really special. It's a guest that I cannot wait to share with you guys, but I can give a hint. He is the theme song king, and he has so much entrances that he's done for a lot of wrestlers from the indies all the way to AEW. So follow us on X, Threads, Instagram, and on Spotify at PGTKPod. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Be awesome with each other, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.